Welcome to the tutorial in which I will explain how to animate a pattern from Adobe Illustrator to Adobe After Effects to Adobe Photoshop to Adobe Dreamweaver to the browser of your choice. You will eventually end up with a tiled animated GIF pattern that you can either turn in as your assignment or keep as a gift for a family member, perhaps a birthday present, an e-card, if you will. Let's get started. I have pre-baked some shapes that you may recognize from class. I'm not going to take the time to do those, to recreate those in this tutorial, but that's 2 rectangles, a circle, and a triangle. I trust that you know how to make those things. The first thing we need to do is decide how large our pattern is going to be, our pattern tile, I should say. I would like to make a 300 pixel square tile pattern. This is going to be my guide. So I'm going to click with the rectangle tool here, and I'm going to type in, I don't know why my Illustrator does that. I wish it would land in the middle of the screen. I'm going to type in 300, tab 300, click OK, and that is going to be my guide square. Now, I don't want it to be the same color as a triangle. It can really be any color, but I'm going to make it into a medium gray, maybe that color of gray. Okay. All right, I'm also going to, for the time being, lock this so I don't keep hitting it. Lock is Command 2, Object, Lock Selection. And it doesn't really matter whether it's centered because we are going to export this to After Effects, and it turns out it doesn't need to be centered in the document. All right, first thing I want to do is cause this pink X to move in my pattern. I want this pink X to move horizontally across the screen, whichever screen this is playing on. So I'm going to just sort of split the difference here. Oops, I'm going to bring it to the front. Object, bring to front. Shift Command right bracket is something I use all the time. I would memorize that one if I were you. Now, I don't have to get super exact here because I'm going to use some math later that's going to make the placement of this on the other side work for me. So I want my pink X's to move from left to right. And in order to do that, to sell the illusion, I'm going to need 3 copies of this thing. So what I'm going to do right now is go up to Object, Move, which is Shift Command M. Also, you can get the Move dialog by simply selecting the shape and hitting Return. And I'm going to move, I want to move it, let's see, this is the middle one. So what I'm going to do is, well, I'll just make 3 copies, then I can shift them later. So I want to move this 300 pixels along a horizontal axis. So I'm going to type in 300 here, 0 here. I don't want it to move at all up and down. And here it's going to tell me, okay, it's going to move in that direction, 300 pixels, just like that. However, I don't want to click OK. I want to click Copy, and then I want to click Command D, because I want a 3rd copy of it. And if I left these things right here, I would have really no choice once I import it into After Effects, if I want to keep it in the same position, to move it from right to left. But since I want it to actually move from left to right, just because, I'm going to select all of these and I'm going to move them. I could move them with my mouse, but I want to move them mathematically. So I'm going to hit Enter or Return, and that is going to bring this dialog up again. I don't want them to move farther to the right though. I want them to all move, all 3 of them, negative 300 pixels. I don't need to click copy this time because I've already got my copies, so I'm going to click OK. There we go. That is what I wanted in the first place. 3 X's to the left of the square guide. Okay, let's do the cyan circles now. My cyan circles, I want to move up. So let's plan this one out a little bit better this time, and let's start on this side. Okay, I'm going to hit Command Shift right bracket. That is Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. And I'm going to hit the Return key again to bring up this good old Move dialog. I'm going to type in, this time I don't want to move it horizontally, I want to move it vertically. So I'm going to type in 0 and horizontal. And what? 300 along the vertical. And I'm going to click Copy. and I'm going to hit Command D to make that move 300 more pixels down. Command D, remember, is transform again. That's how we get our things to rotate around in a circle and to continue to duplicate in a line. I don't know if you use that all the time, but if you don't, you should. All right, now the triangles are not going to move. They're not going to slide. They're just going to rotate. So I'm going to take this triangle and I'm going to place it, let's see, since these things are going to be moving across, it doesn't matter. Oops, Command Shift right bracket, and I'm going to move these, this pink X to the front because I want that to be in front. Now I only need 2. Now why are we putting everything on the edge of the pattern? Well, we are trying to disguise the tile, and if you remember from creating static fill patterns, this is just what we do to sell the illusion of the pattern stretching across the page. So we're going to make another copy of this yellow triangle, 300 pixels to the left here. So I'm going to hit return, bring this up. I'm going to type in -300 in horizontal, 0 in vertical, and I'm going to click copy. There we go. All right, now I want my magenta X's to be on top of everything. So I'm going to select all of them. I'm going to hit Command Shift right bracket or bring to front, and then I'm going to group them. When I import these into After Effects as a composition, I want all 3 of my pink X's to be 1. I want them to move as 1. I want the same thing for my cyan circles. So I'm going to select all 3, and I'm going to hit, I hit Command G before. Group is Command G. I am not going to group my triangles. Okay, I think I'm ready to release all of this to layers. Now to release objects to layers, you just need to do two things. You need to have your layers panel. And I think by default, the layer in the layers panel, layer 1 is selected, and you need it to be selected in order to click on the flyout menu up here. Remember, this is the flyout menu. Click on that and go to Release to Layers Sequence. That will give us 5 sublayers of layer 1, which we then, since After Effects does not recognize sublayers, need to drag out of layer 1, just like this, right above layer 1. And now that layer 1 is an empty layer, we can delete it. Okay, I'm going to click Save. I had already saved this previously as Animate Pattern toot.ai, or TUT as they say on the Tuts Plus network. Okay, let's export this, shall we? Rather, import it into After Effects. It's late while I'm doing this tutorial, I apologize. Okay, we've got this saved. Let's go over to After Effects and let's import this thing. Okay, some time has elapsed while I waited for After Effects to boot up. We are now in a new blank After Effects project. I want to import, so I'm going to go to File, Import File, which is also Command I, which is also double-click in the project window, which is also drag in from the Finder. Actually, let's double-click in the project window, shall we? Double-click in the project window to bring up the same folder where I just saved Animated Pattern Tutorial. And guess what? I am not going to just click my file and click Open like I want to do, like is my instinct, like is my reflex. I am going to resist that, and with my file selected in the import dialog, I'm going to go down here, and since I went through the trouble of releasing all these things to layers, I'm going to go to Import as Composition, Retain Layer Sizes, and then I'm going to click Open. Now I have 2 things in my project window. That's exciting, right? Now I'm really tempted to click this folder and look at these things and start dragging them places, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to simply double-click this composition, because this composition is what After Effects just made for me when I imported my layered Illustrator file. It was nice enough to do that for me. I am just simply going to double-click it and ignore this folder called Animated Pattern Tutorial Layers. I don't need that right now. What I do need to do is name my layers. I want to name this one Guide. Now, the way that you rename layers in After Effects is to hit Return and type and hit Return again. So I'm going to call this one, hit Return, call it Circles, I'm going to Command up arrow to select the next highest layer, which is the right triangle. So I'm going to call it right triangle. Command up directional arrow key gives me my left triangle, not Luft, but left triangle. Hit Enter or Return to seal that. Command up directional key arrow to get my pink X's, and I'm just going to say X's. Hit Return to seal that. Now, some of you guys in class liked the fact that you can change the color of your layers by hitting these color tags right here. My X's, I'm going to tint them fuchsia so I can see them more easily in my timeline. Left triangle and right triangle, I'm going to shift click both of those, tint them yellow. Circles are blue, so I'm going to go under here. They're cyan and tint them cyan. And the guide is gray, so I'm going to leave that alone. I'm also going to right click on the word stretch and say hide this because I don't want that taking up valuable real estate. All right, we're now ready to animate. Now, as I mentioned before, I want my pink X's to move from left to right. So I'm going to click on my X's layer, and I know that I want to animate the position, so I'm going to hit P on my keyboard to reveal the position property. I'm already at 0 seconds on my timeline, so I'm just going to click the stopwatch for position. I happen to know that I want a 3-second loop, so I'm going to hit the plus key a couple times until I can see single seconds. There we go. I can see 3 seconds, verify that it's 3 seconds right here, and then I'm going to move all 3 pink X's, which are on one layer, 300 pixels to the right. Now watch what happens down here as I drag up here to the right. Those numbers are counting upward. So rather than eyeballing this and trying to add 300 pixels, since I remember our tile is 300 pixels, I'm going to Command Z to undo, and I'm simply going to add 300 in this field. I'm going to hit the right directional arrow key so I make sure I'm at the end of all my decimals, and I'm going to write plus 300. These numbers represent pixels, so I hit return and it moves it exactly 300 pixels over. Notice I made sure that I was already moved 3 seconds forward in time before I started changing these values. I made sure I had a first keyframe, then I moved, then I changed this value. All right, the other thing I'm going to do first thing is to set my work area, and since my current time indicator is at 3 seconds already, that's where I want the end of my work area to be. So I'm going to hit the key N. That is my work area. Let's go down to circles, and we're going to move those upwards with the position property. So I'm going to hit P, but I need to be at 0, so I'm going to drag back my slider, or I could also hit Command Option left directional arrow key. Does the same thing since I'm working on a laptop right now. If I were on a full-size keyboard, I could hit the Home key and it would do the same thing, go to 0 on the timeline. All right, circles, I'm going to keyframe position right where we're at, and then I'm going to jump to this. I'm going to jump to 3 seconds by using this keyframe as a guide. So I'm going to come over here to this next keyframe button, and it's going to jump automatically to 3 seconds without me having to eyeball it. All right, now I know that I want these to move up, so take a look at the Y value here. That's the second number under position, under circles. And I'm going to move that up and see that the numbers are actually decreasing in value as I move up. So I know that I need to move, this is a square, right? So I know that I need to move 300 pixels. So I actually need to decrease this number by 300. And what does decrease mean? It means subtract. So subtract 300. Hit return, and look how it moves up perfectly, 300 pixels. Okay, perfect. Command Option left arrow to go back to 0 on my timeline. Let's hit spacebar to preview it. Looks pretty good, looks pretty smooth. Okay. Let's go to 0 again, Command Option left arrow. Let's click both of our triangles at the same time, and at 0 seconds on our timeline, let's hit R to reveal the rotation property. Let's keyframe. I just have to click one of the stopwatches to keyframe both layers at the same time. Jump to 3 seconds by using another keyframe that I know is at 3 seconds. Boom. And I know that I want my triangles each to rotate by 1 degree. Now there was something I did in class where I shifted the anchor points in and things, but that was unnecessary. I did not need to do it. If you do want to move the anchor point of a layer, it is this button right here, the Pan Behind tool, or the Move Mask tool. That will allow you to move anchor points. For simplicity's sake, I'm not going to do that. Plus, a little wobble in my triangles will give it character, and as long as they're both doing the exact same thing, you won't notice anything is off. So let's hit, in the 0x field, let's type 1. That means 1 full rotation. And now we have all of our properties animated. So let's click spacebar and see what this is going to look like. Okay, that's pretty much what I want my animated tile to look like. Now we went over in class how this, what we just watched, is not an actual true loop. It's not a seamless loop because it's actually playing the same frame here and here. The shapes reside in the same position for 2 consecutive frames because when it gets to here and loops to here, it's playing the same frame twice. The way that we trim off one frame and prevent it from playing the same frame twice is to zoom in and grab the end of our work area and just simply slide it back by 1 single frame. See how when I zoom in I can see the width of each frame? 1 frame shorter. Zoom out again, minus, minus, minus. And we are ready to crop this by using the region of interest and also turn off the visibility of the guide. We do not want the gray guide there, so I'm going to turn that off. I don't want to delete it, I'm just going to turn off its visibility by clicking the eyeball. Let's zoom back out a little bit. That's a little bit narrow. Okay. You know what? I was a little bit premature. Turn back on the guide. I was just talking about using the region of interest. Let's first use the region of interest and then turn off the guide. Okay, so this little button right here that is right next to the alpha channel, the transparency channel, that has a rectangle inside of another rectangle. It's called the region of interest button. I'm going to click that and see how my cursor became crosshairs. I'm going to try to replicate as close as possible my gray square. I got pretty close. See how it has a little bounding box? Unfortunately, it turns off. You can't see what you're actually tracing over, but what you can do is in your info panel, this is the info panel right here, check these dx and dy numbers and make sure they both say 300 and negative 300. So I'm going to slowly drag until I can get 300 and 300. There we go. So that is about perfect. It doesn't look perfect. There's some pixels hanging out there, but that doesn't matter because once I turn off my guide layer's visibility, it's not going to matter. Okay? All right. Let's save. Oh, I haven't saved yet. Okay. Animated pattern. Not animate eye pattern, but animated pattern. And let's add this thing to the render queue, shall we? Let's go to Composition, Add to Render Queue. And we need to do 2 things. First, we need to tell it where to save. So I'm going to click that, the blue text, tell it to save. It's already saving to the desktop, and I like that name, so I'm going to click Save. So now that's set. And then I'm going to come over here to Output Module, and I'm going to click the word Lossless, which is written in blue. It is a link. It brings up this dialog box with Output Module settings. And I need to do 2 things in here. Since we drew a region of interest to indicate which area we want to actually render, I'm going to click Crop, and I'm going to click Use Region of Interest. And it is going to reassure me and say that the final size of my movie is going to be 300 by 300 pixels. That's nice of it. I don't need to worry about audio because I don't have any, and After Effects only outputs it if the composition has audio. So click OK, and now we're ready to click Render. A really fast render. We hear the happy I'm finished rendering sound. I'm gonna, you know what, before I close After Effects, let's just see if our movie worked out. Let's double click, click play. Alright, looks like it's working. I could go up here and say View Loop. Now this is QuickTime Player 7. If you have QuickTime Player X, it's not going to do this. But I can actually preview the loop. That little glitch is not going to be there when it's a GIF. Okay, looks good. Let's close that. Let's close After Effects. I'm going to purge all my memory and disk cache. I didn't need to. There was only 333K. We'll get to that another day, what purging the memory does, but it basically speeds up your computer a little bit. Edit, purge all memory and disk cache. Sometimes if you're working on a really complex file, it can take up like 90 gigabytes on your hard drive, and you don't really want that. So I like to clear it out every once in a while. Save, Command Q to quit, or After Effects, quit After Effects. We can also quit Illustrator. We're not going to need that anymore. Command Q. All right, next step is to grab our .mov and drag it on top of the Photoshop icon and wait forever while it opens up in Photoshop. At least it did in class the other day. There we go. As you can see, we have a video timeline here in Photoshop, which is kind of fun. It's not something you see every day if you've never used Photoshop for animation. That is irrelevant to this discussion, however. The only thing that is relevant is this, and all we need to do within Photoshop is export it as a GIF. So I'm going to go to File, Export, Save for Web. And in the Save for Web dialog, you will see that, oh, it's already set to a GIF. If this does not say GIF right here, go ahead and click it and make it say GIF. I've already got all 256 colors. That is the maximum amount of colors you can have in a GIF. And most importantly, I'm going to come down here to Animation, Looping Options. I don't want it to play just once. I want it to play forever. Now I'm going to click Save. I want it to save to the desktop. It's going to save just an image, one GIF, an animated GIF, and I'm done with Photoshop. I don't need to save it, I just need to quit. Okay, the only thing we need now is an HTML file to hold this GIF and to let it tile up in a browser. I happen to already have the file index.html downloaded, and it already has code written in it. You know where that is on Learning Suite. It's, yeah, I don't know when you're going to be watching this, but index.html is on Learning Suite. So now one thing you need to remember about the HTML files and the GIF file is that it needs to be in the same directory as the GIF. The HTML and the GIF need to be in the same folder. In that case, this case, it is my desktop. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to open up this HTML page in Dreamweaver because I find that is the app that most people have. A lot of you like to use different programs like Sublime, Text, Text Wrangler, Eclipse, what have you. Make sure when you open it up in Dreamweaver, if you use Dreamweaver, that it is in code view. Code view, otherwise you won't be able to see anything. We have some inline CSS right here, and one of the things we need to change, the only thing we have to change, is the background image. Right here. The URL right now says geolayer section1.gif. We actually need it to say the name of our GIF file, which right now is animate pattern tut.gif. So what I'm going to do is copy this. I'm going to hit return to select. See how it only selects the file name and not the extension? We need all of that. So I'm going to hit Command A to select the whole entire name, file name. Hit Command C to copy. Zoom back out here. Go back to Dreamweaver. And I'm going to paste that over this highlighted text. Command V. Animate pattern tut.gif. I can now save index.html, and I can actually, there's some text in this. I don't want any text in this, so I'm going to erase this p tag. If you don't have this in yours, don't worry about it. If you don't mind the text, leave it there. I'm going to delete it. All you need to worry about is replacing this image name, file name. I'm going to hit Command S or File, Save, Close. Get rid of the welcome screen, and as you can see, our index.html has been updated. I like to keep things organized on my desktop by a date modified. Let's see if this worked. I'm going to double click on this HTML file, which is going to open up my copy of Chrome, and it looks like it worked. That's exciting, right? It worked perfectly. Bask in the glory, you guys. Let me try to full screen this to get maximum real estate. And with a simple 59-step process, you have an animated GIF pattern tile that seamlessly moves across the screen fluidly. Now, go make your own patterns. Thanks a lot.